So you're thinking about whether or not you should buy a condo or continue renting that apartment that you're in. Could be a tough decision, but sometimes paying your own mortgage makes sense. Let's dig into the considerations you should make. So condos can be a very good first step into home ownership. The price point into getting into home ownership is a lot lower. So, for example, where I live in Sandy Springs, the average single family home in my area is $680,000. But the average for a condo in Sandy Springs, Georgia is $372,000. So the entry point into home ownership is a lot less. And you get the experience of living in a home, buying a home, and then eventually selling a home for that single family home that you may want to settle down in later on. So rents are going up every year. And basically what you're doing when you rent an apartment is paying the landlord's mortgage. So does it make sense for you to pay your own mortgage? Does it make sense to buy that condo? One of the tools that we use is called a price to rent ratio. And this is how it works. So the price to rent ratio is what investors use to determine whether or not it is cheaper to buy or rent a property. So how it works is you go to any real estate website, the one with the Z, and you find how much condos are in your area for exactly the amount of bedrooms, square footage, and amenities that you want. So for this example, we'll say it's worth $300,000. So once you have the $300,000, then you go back to that website or you Google apartments near me and you find out how much it costs to rent an apartment for the same amount of bedrooms, square footage, and amenities. So for this example, we'll say $2,000. So you take $2,000 times 12 months, and that gives you an annual rent paid of $24,000. So we have the purchase price of a condo at $300,000, and then you have your annual rent price of $24,000. You divide those, the $300,000 by $24,000, and you get a number. The number is 12.5. So investors use this as a benchmark to determine whether or not you should buy or rent. And they use 15 and under as a indicator that it's better to buy in that area than it is to rent. So anything over 15 is risky or it's better to rent. So the price to rent ratio is not an exact science, and it should not be the only factor that you consider when you're thinking about taking the plunge into home ownership or whether or not you should buy that condo. So what else should you think about? Let's talk about tax breaks, tax advantages. Let's get tax advantaged. When you buy a condo, you are buying real property. That box that you own, whether it be on the 3rd floor like me or the 23rd floor, you own real property. And with that, you may get a tax break. Something else to consider is the maintenance and insurance of that condo. So for maintenance, you're going to be responsible for everything inside the box of your condo. So you're in an apartment. If your fridge breaks down, you call the landlord and you wait for them to come and send somebody to fix it. However, when you own your own condo, that fridge breaks down, you're going to Home Depot. Upfront costs when you're buying a condo. You're going to have to put a down payment when you buy a condo. Now, it depends on what kind of mortgage you get. It could be a FHA or VA or a conventional, but you're going to have to put some money down towards the deposit. It could be upwards of 20%. You're also going to have to pay for closing costs, which could be anywhere from 2 to 4% of the purchase price of the property. However, one thing to keep in mind is your house, your condo is going to gain equity, which means it's going to increase in price. So the National Association of Realtors thinks that the purchase price of homes are going to go up about 4% every year for the next 5 years. that makes your $300,000 condo a little over $350,000. So that's a pretty good deal when all you really did was live in the condo. How long are you going to stay in that apartment versus the condo? So are you the type of person that likes to move every couple of years? Are you a nomad? You like go checking out other cities? Then you may want to reconsider buying a condo because you're going to have to sell it. And so selling sometimes can be a major hassle. When you're renting, all you have to do is give the landlord your notice and get your security deposit and hire a mover and bounce. Inflation, everybody's favorite topic, but inflation impacts your rent. Your rent is going to increase every single year, and there's nothing you can do about it. Your landlord honestly can raise it to whatever they want. And unless you're living in a state or a city that has rent control, there's really nothing you can do about it. But mortgages, you can get a locked in rate. So if you get locked in at 4% for 30 years or 6% or whatever the mortgage rates are today, you're locked in. It can't go any higher. The only caveat is HOA fees. So HOA fees will increase. They should increase. You want them to increase because you are an owner in this community. So you want the HOA to be able to fix things as they arise, right? You want your community to stay nice. And the only way that it's going to stay nice is if your HOA fees keep up with the cost of things and inflation. So your HOA fees are going to increase. Maybe your homeowner's insurance will increase a little bit, but you're going to be paying your own mortgage, and that gives you equity.